Hello, my name is printf, and this is another one of my cannon rushing tutorial videos. Today we are going to be focusing on what the fundamental goals of your cannon rush are, effectively what you're trying to achieve, and what determines whether the cannon rush was successful or unsuccessful. So this cannon rushing location on King Sejong Station, the details for which you can see in the other video I have already made, specifically focusing on this map and matchup, demonstrates the most important goals of a cannon rush against Zerg. Note that this is specifically against Zerg and not either of the other races. So what this does is these two cannons, and any more that you would like to build, will guard the ramp, and this cannon that you can build here, assuming no cancellation, will shut down the natural expansion. These are two of the most important because it is the primary goal of the cannon rush, which is shutting down the opponent's economy. Without an expansion and without the ramp, which prevents any drones from getting out to take another expansion, the Zerg will be reduced to a one-base economy. Guarding the ramp also helps prevent counterattacks from Zerglings or roaches. And then this also demonstrates the third goal, which is not really any less important than the previous two, which is high ground. This build here will give you high ground, and you can build as many cannons as necessary to ensure that you maintain the high ground. And high ground allows you to not die immediately to a single queen or spine crawler, because if you do not have high ground vision, then anything with range can come over, kill off all your stuff, and let the Zerg expand. This adds a lot of longevity to your cannon rush, and is one of the primary goals when cannon rushing. On top of these three most critical goals, there are also some more bonuses, I guess, that you can achieve with the cannon rush. Now these are ideal, but not necessary when devising the cannon rush. Though it is not viable on any of the maps in the current pool, as far as I'm aware, it is possible to deny both gases on some maps. For example, on Habitation Station, which was one of the first maps that I was cannon rushing on, my cannon rush build would deny both gases from the Zerg, preventing any kind of tech play at all. With no gas and with no bases, the Zerg was left completely dead in the water. Another benefit of this particular spot is that while maybe not relevant on this map, it does watch the enemy main hatchery as well. On maps where you can't block both gases, this is very beneficial because it allows you to see if the enemy is morphing a lair. If the enemy is morphing a lair, then that is very critical to know, so that way you can prepare for any kind of nidus or swarm host or speed roach, one base muta, random teching to hive and getting vipers. You know, just general things that are important to be aware of. Also, although this does not demonstrate it exactly, if the opponent happens to place their spawning pool in a location close to your cannon rush location, then you can sometimes get a kill on that and pick up a free 200 mineral damage for the enemy. Now, things rarely go according to plan in an actual game, and the opponent will often freak out and pull off all his drones to come kill you. In some circumstances, and with some cannon rush locations, you can take advantage of this, and ideally, although not as a part of your game plan, you can actually trap all of his drones on the low ground, as will be demonstrated with this particular replay. Note that this is not exactly the most amazing cannon rush location from me. I struggled to adapt to the green pool effectively. However, this does demonstrate the idea of trapping all of the opponent's drones on the low ground. With all the drones isolated, there is no way to get them back home, and with no drones, the game is over. So all builds need to accomplish those first 3 primary goals against Zerg of securing the ramp, securing the high ground, and denying the natural. Note that the first cannon does not have to be in range of the hatchery, as long as you have an efficient way to place cannons in range of it, should the Zerg choose not to cancel. Most Zerg players will cancel the natural once it is clear that the cannon rush has succeeded, and that renders this actually unnecessary. But if you leave yourself no option to cannon rush it, with, for example, this pylon here, building cannons over here, then you will actually be in trouble if the Zerg chooses to not cancel. Although this is mitigated by having a proxied gateway. And then, ideally, you can sometimes deny gas mining or trap all the drones. Seeing the hatchery is a very nice bonus because that prevents you from having to potentially suicide units scouting for it. And, of course, if you can happen to kill a spawning pool, then that's a free pickup there, which is amazing, but not necessary. So moving on to PvP, we have an entirely new set of goals. In PvP, you want to either build cannons that are in range of the Nexus, which will eventually kill off the Nexus and shut down all mining, or to really quickly build a cannon that is in range of the mineral line, which will destroy the enemy workers and essentially win you the game. Now, if you're going to be doing one of the former, where you attempt to cannon rush inwards to get to the Nexus, then ideally, although not necessarily, you can do it from other positions as well. But ideally, you will guard the ramp, so that way the enemy cannot simply run away with ease. If you guard the ramp over here, then you can wall in the enemy if he chooses to run away, and this can give you a very large advantage. Also, while attempting to destroy the enemy Nexus, it is ideal, again, to be able to attack some probes that are nearby, even if you can't hit the entire mineral line. It is also beneficial to destroy enemy pylons that are powering gateways or cybernetics cores or really anything. And if you can hit probes mining gas, that is even better than hitting probes mining minerals, because it's stalkers, mothership cores, and void rays that are concerning and not zealots. Remember, the goal in PvP is to flat out kill your opponent with the cannons and not to simply deny him a base. If you're doing a cannon rush behind the mineral line, then it is entirely about getting that first cannon up, and no future cannons are of relevance, mostly. Therefore, it is okay to invest in additional pylons while getting this cannon up. So the enemy may pull for your pylons, and it is completely okay to build 4 of them initially and then invest even more in reinforcing those pylons should they happen to fall. Whereas if you're doing a rush from a distance, it is far better to keep it down to only 3 pylons. And this is easier to do because the enemy's probes have to walk further to actually get to you, and you can generally utilize the low ground as an advantage. When you're rushing from a distance, you need to be able to get additional cannons up, and ideally you will only require 1 additional cannon to actually be in range of the Nexus. This example rush here is actually not very good, and I wouldn't recommend it because of the distance from the Nexus. And the surface area on some of these pylons is also not ideal, as well as the fact that it doesn't actually guard the ramp properly, although it does guard a cannon that guards the ramp. While this could be worse, it is far from ideal, and I wouldn't actually recommend this in real game. So when playing against Terran, you have 2 alternative goals. You may either force him to lift off and fly away, which is very beneficial to you despite what people on the internet may tell you. Or you can guard the ramp, push into his command center, and either kill off his command center or all his SCVs, which will likely suicide themselves in the process of trying to repair a bunker to prevent you from killing off the command center or creeping forwards. This replay here will demonstrate the idea of forcing him to fly away, because I think it is the less intuitive of the two options. Now, my execution here was very likely flawed, as this is a very old replay. Regardless, it should demonstrate the concept of forcing him to fly away. Effectively, once you have a cannon up, you can proxy a gateway in his base, or even two, and if you're given the opportunity, you can deny him landing his command center with a couple of gateways and pylon or whatever you want. This is not necessary, but it can help if you are given the opportunity. The primary issue, for the Terran at least, is that you have gateways in his main base producing units, as well as tech occurring back home. Given that you are in his main base and he is in his natural, you have the luxury of the high ground vision, and he does not. He may place a bunker on the high ground to attempt to deny you this high ground vision, and this may succeed, but in that instance, you can always attack him from multiple angles. You can even place a pylon maybe here or here, and warp in on the low ground if you don't want to send out another probe. Attacking him from two angles, one of which having the high ground, makes it impossible to hold off the proxy to 2 gates plus the additional 2 gateways you can build back home for a total of 4 gates. So while flying away supposedly renders the cannon rush ineffectual, this is actually not true, and you can get a very strong strategic advantage out of it, even if you invest more than he loses by the lost mining time. This replay here demonstrates the other option against Terran, which is just creeping in towards his command center until he loses too many SCVs and leaves the game. Now, I don't know why I don't have sound in this particular replay, as nothing significant occurred between this and the previous one, but Battle.net doesn't like me, so c'est la vie. Effectively, in this game, I just got a cannon up. His bunker was a little bit late and a little bit misplaced, and therefore I was able to kill him by simply denying the bunker. I believe he mismicros a little bit and loses his marines at some point. Yep, there goes that marine, and he leaves the game because he has no way of stopping the cannon creep towards his command center, as he has 0 marines and has lost a bunch of SCVs, and basically has lost the game. This is very highly effective and is probably a little bit more recommended than building stuff behind his mineral line. However, both methods can work, and depending on the map architecture, one might be better than the other. I recommend actually investigating each map on a case-by-case basis before deciding which method you would like to use. Also, this is very much a stylistic thing. You might favor one style over the other. Now, this same replay can be used to demonstrate a general concept of cannon rushing that is applicable to all matchups. And this is probably the most important concept when cannon rushing, so I'm going to emphasize this very heavily by spending a lot of time talking about how important it is rather than actually telling you what it is. So that way you remember me being annoying and spending like 2 minutes just describing how significant this is. And then hopefully that will help you remember what this actually is, which is very important, and you should remember because it's very important and is like the most important concept in cannon rushing, and you should remember this, damn it. Okay, so the idea here is, you'll notice I build this pylon, and then I don't, even though I'm floating 200 minerals, I don't build the other 2 pylons to make the wall off. Now, this is not because I don't want to trap my probe. While that's relevant, it's not the primary factor. The actual reason I don't build those yet is that unless I am actually forced to, I can get away with an extra 200 minerals. And even though I don't build them initially, as long as I'm paying attention, I can easily get them down before the worker pull comes and blocks the placement. Even with them going down so late, he's not going to be able to actually break through the pylons. This one only lost shields. And if he doesn't pull anything, then I can use those extra 200 minerals to build more cannons up here and push in towards his command center. Again, this is the most important feature when can rushing. Cancel every pylon you can. Don't build any pylon that you can possibly get away with not building. In fact, even in this game, I would say I screwed up by not canceling here. This pylon, you could make an argument for letting finish. This pylon, however, should certainly have been cancelled, so I could get an extra 75 minerals and get another cannon up significantly earlier. So cancel everything unless you can actually get away with not starting it in the first place. This is useful in every matchup, in every circumstance, ever. Don't build something unless you have to. And I hope that was enough emphasis for you guys to really internalize that. So whenever you design a cannon rush, figure out which pylons you can get away with not actually building. For example, when you do a 3 pylon wall off on the high ground, which one is actually powering the low ground structures? Let that one finish, and then only build the other 2 if actually necessary. This is against Zerg, of course. So I hope that this was educational and informative, and I hope you remember the last part of this, which was very important. And if any of you have any kinds of comments, criticisms, or requests, leave them in the comments below. And if you want to see more of me can rushing, then go check out my stream at twitch.tv/quasarprintf. I will be attempting to upload more of these in the future, and I will include on the screen right now somewhere is a link to the playlist of all of these videos. So good luck and have fun can rushing people on the ladder, or maybe in a best of 3 somewheres in a tournament.